Hey everybody, before we get into today's interview, I forgot to mention in the full recording that I am hosting a webinar next Tuesday, February 4th at 2 p.m. Eastern, all about the business maintenance items that you need to do on an annual basis to make sure that you're running your business and everything is up to date. I'm talking like copy, email automations, all the things like that. So if you would like to join me, figure out what some of these annual business maintenance things are that you need to do, I'll probably create a checklist for you so that you can have a takeaway to use that for your own business maintenance plan. I would love to see you there. It is absolutely free, and maybe I might stick in a little bonus there for you. But check out the show description so that you can have the sign up link to join us. All right, let's get into it. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Strategic Travel Entrepreneur Podcast. If you're new around here, my name is Rita M. Perez, and I am your hostess with the mostest. I feel like I sound a bit different today because if you didn't know, this past week has been Host Week with host agency reviews. So I know we talked a little bit about that last week on the podcast. It is a packed week and I did not prepare well. So I am recording this podcast episode earlier in the day than I normally do. So I still feel like I have like a waking up voice, but we're just going to get started anyways, which I have a really fun topic. I did not prepare well for this week. It kind of came at me almost the end of January. Like how are we already? It is the 31st today when this goes live. So you may be listening this still in January, or it may already be February. How did this happen? I'm not really sure. I feel like I've been saying this since probably October though. I have a really fun episode for you because, again, I mentioned I wasn't too well prepared, and I have to thank Shayna on the host agency reviews team that shared this trends report that came in from Tripadvisor, and I just found it super fascinating, and I did nerd out on some of the trends. I'm looking at this, and it feels like there's 14 trends. So some of them I'll go into a little bit more than others, but I wanted to, share these with you and share my thoughts on how you can use these trends and maximize them for your benefit for your travel business. I also wanted to share kind of like the methodology because Tripadvisor, and I'll go ahead and I'll link it into the show description so you can take a look for yourself as well. The methodology, I really love this because they figured out their trends because of the data that they have on their website. So this is just another like woohoo for being able to track things on your website. And so it's important to, like, if you're using like a link cloaker, however you can track links and page views, like your Google Analytics or anything like that, tracking like where bookings are coming from, what people are booking. Like you can get all this information from website analytics. You can also get this information from the CRM that you're using. But this is how they've compiled these trends through the conversations that are happening within their forums and reviews. So if you were trying to figure out what your trends are, what have your own clients been saying? What have you been noticing in the industry that's been happening? So some of these trends are not totally new because I have heard of them or seen them elsewhere. They also track like how many bookings, clicks, page views within their website as well. So again, just saying like a lot of this stuff that Tripadvisor is doing is also things that you should be doing to get data and then also see what your travelers are experiencing because these are the travelers that are on Tripadvisor. So they call this their trend cast. The first trend. So there are 14, just a heads up. I'll try and be a little brief, but you know what? I like to be a chatty Cathy around here. So the first trend that they're seeing is called water culturalism. Travelers are turning to water as a way to relax, heal, and tap into a deeper connection with nature. How they know this is that there's been a 73% rise in searches for cold plunges. And then there's also been a 150% rise in bookings that include thermal spas and hot springs. And that's been since 2022. So obviously you can see that there are huge increases in people interested in these types of things. And I know like the past couple of years, cold plunges has been a big thing that I've seen over on social media. So really what they're saying about this one is that water has been our happy place, whether it's ocean waves, infinity pools, or bracing an ice plunge. That's not my happy place, but it might be your happy place. But now our connection with water is going deeper, shifting into social playgrounds and adventure frontiers. I feel like this trend kind of goes with the trend that cruising is on the rise. And that also, there was big major news, if you didn't hear earlier this week, that Celebrity Cruises, a premium ocean line brand, is now getting into the river cruise market. I have mixed feelings about it. I'm interested to see where they go with this. My personal thoughts are keep the ocean stuff on the ocean stuff. Like, that's what makes river cruising special, is that it's not like an ocean cruise. So I'd be interesting to see how they execute their river cruise side of things. Not closing myself totally off to it. I'm just curious to see where it's gonna go. But I have been like, since I had pivoted my agency and now I'm focusing more on education, but when I was first making that pivot, like one of my biggest arguments for people to do retreats on cruise ships was because you had that open space. And I remember, like, I've had many conversations with Sahara Rose DeVore of the Travel Coach Network of the impact of having open blue and green spaces, just being out in the outdoors for healing and relaxation. And there's also like a bit of grounding that happens, even though you're on the ocean. There's a little bit of like, when they say that deeper connection with nature, there's something that is just innately in us as human beings that we're drawn to these types of spaces. So it makes complete sense. Some of the things that they are outlining here are like ancient bathing rituals like hammams, which I loved my experience in Tunisia when I went to a hammam. There's modern bathhouses that they're saying is really a big hotspot for Gen Z and millennials in South Korea and China. There's also group water therapy sessions like karaoke, gaming, and movie nights that are happening in Shanghai, which that's interesting. Even traditional water activities are being reimagined. Dive operators like Original Diving are transforming underwater adventures into shared conservation missions. Planting coral in the Philippines, tracking seahorses off of Mozambique, and building reef highways in Fiji. I feel like that is another trend, and that might come in a little bit later as well. Like, people don't want to do the typical thing anymore when they're on travel. They want to do something that's deeper, meaningful, different than the normal way that we've been traveling before. The next trend is play it forward. The rise of happiness hacking holidays is allowing adults to embrace a sense of play out in the world. So they have noticed a 52% increase in bookings that encompassed fun and games, and a 105% increase in escape games. So no surprises here. We've been through a lot in the past 5 years, but grown-up problems don't always require grown-up solutions. Play is our new travel remedy, and we're not leaving all the fun to the kids anymore. We'll still take the poolside lounging, but the desire for dopamine hits is opening up new worlds of connection and creativity. There's some of these things that I'm like, oh, that is not me. So I can tell, like, this trend is not in my realm of what I like to do. But some of the things that they had mentioned is Brisbane has a multi-sensory dopamine land. There's also a Ninja Warrior style moon bounce at the Luxor. In Boston, F1 fans can hop into the driver's seat and take a few high-speed laps around the track. With some motion racing simulators. And in Germany, there's floating dining chairs that can take guests on a literal tasting journey through themed rooms, from an underwater umami experience to a spice-filled lunch in outer space. They're also mentioned they linked up some things, an adult sleepaway camp, which have to plug my summer camp at sea. If you haven't heard, I am planning my first retreat, summer camp at sea. So I guess I am part of this trend where we're having fun as adults building our travel businesses. So if you want to get the actual work done, it's not a learning retreat, it is a doing retreat. So if that has peaked, I'll go ahead and I'll link up summer camp at sea. Something else that they keep mentioning is a cowboy crash course, chef for a day. All ages astronauts are welcome as well. So lots of different experience that really tune into like your inner child. And I was, I'm a big astrology person. So that is one of the big themes I think for this year is us going back to that inner child and like healing our inner kid and being able to do all the things that the inner kid in us always wanted to do, but we were never able to do because, rules, parents, and all of that. Which leads us on to the next trend, number 3, written in the stars. And this is probably our favorite because it is related to astrology. Thanks to witch talk and astrology in the mainstream, spiritual experiences are helping more of us find community and a sense of purpose in the universe. So in their forums, they're noticing a 300% increase in the mention of zodiac signs and a 530% increase in their bookings over the last 2 years with activities that mention astrology, tarot, and the full moon. So my inner astrology nerd is super giddy about this. Here's what they have to say. Gather your energy, spiritual practices like tarot card readings. I know some people might say it a little bit different. I know it as tarot, but correct me if I'm incorrect. And horoscopes are no longer at-home activities. They're driving travel decisions and reshaping destinations. In this now age spirituality, ancient practices are merging with modern wellness, feeding our curiosity about worlds seen and unseen. And hotels are fully embracing it. The Standard in London has rolled out monthly zodiac retreats, matching travelers with experiences tailored to their sign. OMG. Nerding out here. Whether you're a Cancer in for a moonlight meditation or a Gemini exploring a chart reading, as well as one-on-one sessions with an astrologer. At Costa Navarino's Mandarin Oriental, crystal healing readings have claimed their spot on the spa menu alongside traditional massages. Love that. And even ancient sites are getting the cosmic treatment with astrologer-led tours in sacred spots like Stonehenge and the pyramids. And things like that. Solstice festivals are on the rise. We had the eclipse. I believe it's in 2026, maybe 2027. I can't remember now. There's a big eclipse. And from the last eclipse that happened last year, so many, especially cruise companies, were jumping in on that to be able to take people to the places where they can experience these eclipses in full. So an eclipse is an astrological event. It's also astronomical event. So it crosses both. So these are the things that are really growing. Like this wasn't too surprising to me because I'm already in this realm. Like people just wanting different types of experiences and really that curiosity. I love that. Like just being curious about the world and how other people look at it. And I also know that there's something, I forget what it's called, but in the astrological realm, there are places on your chart that light you up a little bit more. If I can figure out what the word is, I might share it on social media. But a lot of people travel to different places in the world based on their birth chart with astrology as well, because based on that, like there's just different places that light you up as opposed to other places as well. Number 4, this was a really interesting one to me as well. New moons. And no, this does not have to do with astrology new moons. Beyond honeymoons and baby moons, travelers now have a bunch of new reasons to celebrate with trips. So there's been a 39% increase in non-traditional milestone mentions over the past year. Retirement, divorce, and sobriety are three of the biggest ones that they cited on their site, which is very interesting because sobriety, I have been noticing a boom in non-alcoholic like spirits companies and non-alcoholic wine companies kind of coming up. And so I feel like this ties in very much. And I just think the newer generation, like alcohol is just not as big of a thing as it definitely was like when I was growing up. And I know in previous generations were growing up. So these aren't the same vacays you grew up on. We're shaking things up and reimagining who we travel with and why. I'm going to pause at this line too, because I think that this, if you're kind of unsure about, especially when it comes to marketing, like this, the why is what you really need to be diving in deeper. It's a way to celebrate the relationships and milestones that matter most to us, no matter where we are in life. Big changes to traditional family structures are ushering in different ways to explore the world. And I love it because one of the things that they mentioned is dinks. Double income, no kids are living it up in bestie moons. And retirees are taking retire moons. So all these different things, like I had no idea that this was such a booming, this is such a booming era. Also, people who are sober are celebrating their sober-versaries and toasting with mocktails. While, of course, divorcees are experiencing their newfound freedom on solo island getaways and beauty-inspired escapes. So a lot of the things that they're searching for is like the post-divorce detox, retirement reset, and unforgettable bestie weekend. So really digging in deep, this is what really helps. Like if you're able to do the work on who your ideal client is and what really motivates them to travel, you're going to be able to really pair up some of these new moons with what their biggest desires are. Number 5, dynamically sensorial. Love that. As people look for new ways to escape, we're turning to fully immersive experiences that surprise the 5 senses. So I was talking a little bit about this, that people are just wanting different ways to experience life. So they've noticed an increase, 75% increase in forest bathing, and a 267% increase in multisensory. The old vacation playbook, beach, book, repeat, isn't quite doing it anymore. As post-pandemic travelers, we're seeking deeper connections with our surroundings and ourselves. What we want is visceral, the gritty massage of sand between our toes, the sound of tide pool bubbles, the smell of citrus orchards, and yes, precious hours away from our screens. And so lots of different hotel companies, spas, cultural venues are delivering on these types of immersive experiences, whether it is forest bathing, where you're also able to kind of like be tactile, touching trees, seeing what their patterns are, but then also seeing the electric flash of different butterflies that are in the forests. Things like that. Like it's also very grounding as well, these multi-sensory types of activities. I know they mentioned the dining blindfolded. I know that has been a big thing in the past couple of years as well. It's just doing things that are a little bit out of the ordinary. So creating your own scent, I know, is a huge thing. Sound healing has become like a really big thing. Dining in the dark. So I'm curious, like, which one of your senses are you really thinking about when we touch on these, the multisensory? This next trend is one that I was like, whoa. I would never have guessed this because I'm not in this realm. So global gaming is number 6. Esports tournaments and fantasy worlds based on real places are translating into in real life trips. So the week after the release of Black Myth Wukong, I don't know what that is, but you might know what that is, or your clients might know what that is. There was a 93% increase in the Shaanxi province. I may have mispronounced that wrong, so apologies. And then the Fortnite World Championships in Fort Worth led to an increase in bookings to Fort Worth, an increase of 92%. Bananas. So gaming is a whole new category of destination travel. I think this is super niche, which I feel like this is what nerds me out about this niche in particular. I have no idea about it, but I think if you do, and this is something that you like to do and your people like to do, I would capitalize on this. With more than 3 billion online gamers worldwide, we're not just playing in digital worlds anymore. We're traveling to experience them in real life. Picture this, you're trekking through ancient temples in China's Shanxi province, and it hits you. This is exactly like the backdrop of that RPG Black Myth Wukong, or maybe you're exploring Iceland's it's a glacier that I cannot pronounce, where the ice caves and frozen landscapes feel like you've walked straight into your favorite fantasy realm. I would love to know, is this something that you're interested, is this a niche that you're interested in getting into? Because this feels like it could be very, very lucrative. I know I talk about sometimes like the set jetting and going to your favorite movie sets, going to the places that like the different books that you've read may have talked about and discussed. But I don't think that we've incorporated this where like the gaming aspect comes into it. So this might be a cool, innovative one for you to explore if that is your thing. Number 7, love this one, investigative eating. Learning where our food comes from is becoming part of our itineraries, from farm stays to restaurants that prioritize sustainability. Food sustainability has increased on their site 65%, and farm-to-table bookings have increased 80%. While we know farm to table isn't a new idea, now we're seeing it as the next evolution. We're taking a closer look respectfully and getting a firsthand understanding of where our food comes from and how it's made. We're taking staycations to destination restaurants like Don Julio in Argentina for sustainably raised steak, then making our way to working estancias to learn how gauchos manage grassland cattle ranches, or we're joining local fishermen in Japan on their daily runs to catch that night's dinner and learning to make kimchi in Korean homes. This one I am so about. Like, there's been a lot of some of the sources that they're citing are like, take a traditional tea farm tour in India, cook Balinese food with a local family. So anytime like that you can learn about a different culture through food, I am all about that. There's a lot of different niches that are kind of like popping up from this trend. So I would love to know. Last year I did a lead generation series. We talked about family travel, romance. I believe we talked food and beverage, but now I can't remember. And we also talked about luxury. So how to find leads in those different segments. I would love to know, because I want to do 4 different niches this year. What are some niches that you would love lead generation ideas for? Because those are the ones that I will be talking about in this year's lead generation series, especially as we're talking about some of these emerging trends. What would you like to know that I can investigate a little bit more about how to find leads for your travel business? Number 8, Family Vacations 2.0. The future of family travel is more accessible, intentional, and enjoyable than ever for the whole family. 57% increase in kinder hotels, 60% increase on the whole family, 68% increase on children's classes. We'll never stop hauling our kids around the globe, thank us later, but long gone are the days of parking kids at the pool and jetting off for adults-only activities. Now, there's something for everyone, whether that's totally reimagined kids clubs for fun or activities for all of the generations. So they mentioned some activities as like sightseeing in Iceland from the saddle, buggy rides through Punta Cana's countryside, beginner-friendly snorkeling in Montego Bay, Young Marines Biologist Club in Maldives. So I feel like even amongst these trends, we're noticing the trend of people wanting to do different things, not the standard things that many of us have done over so many years and times on vacation. We need to, and that's where you, as the professional in the travel industry, you always need to be on the lookout about what's new and what's fresh. What can you share with your clients that they might be craving? Because one, you've gotten to know them, you know who they are, then you know what type of traveler they are, and two, you're noticing what types of experiences, one, are being put out there by our tour operator friends, and then also what people are craving, or how can we be more inventive. And then I would even challenge you, what kind of itinerary can you work with one of your providers on that might err on one of the sides of these types of trends, and maybe make it a group trip as well. Number 9, nano neighborhoods. Instead of maxing out their itineraries, travelers are going deeper into single destinations, taking it one block at a time. This is definitely slow travel at its finest. So there has been a 97% increase in Centro Histórico Sevilla, 127% increase in the 798 Art Zone in Beijing, and a 72% increase in Wrigleyville, Chicago. Once upon a time, it was all about crossing off the big ticket items, hitting every arrondissement in Paris, checking off the Louvre, the Eiffel Tower, Sacré-Cœur, but now travelers are slowing down and taking it one neighborhood at a time. Over tourism and a hunger to have real, authentic experiences are driving us to zoom in on single neighborhoods, even streets, to find the stuff you can't get in the guidebooks. We're plotting new routes to up-and-coming areas like Cape Town's industrial East City, where trendy co-working spaces and grungy dive bars hug the same street corners. And travelers are leaning into hyper-specific itineraries, sometimes narrowing in on a single trip. Take Park Slope, Brooklyn's own Fifth Avenue, which trades in the high-end fashion houses of that other Fifth Avenue for more humble comic book stores, plus a not-safe-for-work romance bookstore and a community-centered spaces from queer bars to sports bars. So this is a cool one. Like, instead of, and this is something that I'm recommending. I have a friend who wants to pack in lots of things into an upcoming trip, and I was like, you might want to slow that down a little bit so that you can just indulge and feel, and also not be on the go, go, go. Number 10, solo social. A new way of going solo is focusing more on making meaningful connections. That's the second time, at least, that we've talked about this, meaningful connections wherever you are. Solo travelers are mentioning more in their reviews, an 6% increase in meeting new people and making friends. Solo travel isn't just circumstantial anymore, it's aspirational. We're exploring alone but staying connected, turning our solo adventures into shared experiences. We're getting smarter about mixing me time with we time, using social media to find our people. Art lovers in Florence, meet me at Uffizi at 3. Apps like Wanderlog, Rome to Rio, and Meetup, and Tripadvisor, of course, are helping us do things like plan itineraries, find local activities, and even connect with our travel wins on the road. Now, I don't know much about solo travel. I do a lot of solo travel for business, but not for personal. But I do have to say, especially when it comes to apps, when I went to Podfest, that was a huge thing. Like, lots of us may have come solo to Podfest, but being able to connect and talk about different interests that we have in common because of the events app was huge. So I can see why this makes sense. It's like, you are traveling, you're experiencing something on your own, but also wanting that sense of community and being able to connect with other people once you're there in destination. So if solo travel is something that you specialize in, this might be right up your alley. This next one was really interesting to me. Beauty Voyagers, number 11. Beauty-minded travelers are making trips out of far-off treatments, seeking out local rituals and cutting-edge new technologies. Part of this makes me think that it's very similar to like the medical vacations where people would do a vacation overseas, but also get like some sort of medical procedure done. So this one seems to be booming on TripAdvisor. 389% increase in head spas, 433% increase in red light therapy, and 400% increase in skincare experience bookings. It's the next evolution of self-care. Travelers are centering entire trips around beauty treatments you can't get anywhere else. We care about the ingredients in our products and want to learn about skincare routines around the world that make us look and feel better. We'll travel to places like Morocco, where spas like La Mamonia incorporate centuries-old ingredients such as black soap and argan oil, or South Korea, where ginseng and snail mucin are as common as daily sunscreen, but we never forget the SPF, of course. This one is also pretty interesting. So if you haven't heard, I've recently heard of the whole snail mucin and beauty products. So it seems like that might be a South Korea item. Olive oil massages in Greece, mud baths in Morocco, Ayurvedic facials in India. Rita can't talk today, clearly. So beauty. This is a trend. I'm all about holistic products. So being able to search the world almost for the best natural and holistic is really right up my alley, but I would have never, like, that's not a thing that I personally think about, but this is something to think about now that it's come to the forefront that other people are traveling for these types of reasons. Number 12, sports trek, something else I don't have really good background in. New ways of playing and enjoying sports are giving us new reasons to follow our passions around the globe. So if you are a sports buff, this is for you. There's been a 219% increase in sporting events, and then a 329% increase in curling. I remember like one of the Winter Olympics recently, curling became like this huge thing, so that doesn't surprise me at all. The sports obsession is real. Whether we're chasing quiet moments on a paddleboard, seeking adrenaline rushes at 10,000 feet, or traveling cross-continent to cheer on our team, travelers are going all in. This makes me think, like, people were traveling internationally for those Taylor Swift concerts. So how can you cash in on these types of big events, these mega events? Because they do outline the FIFA World Cup, and that's in 2026. And we also have the 2026 Olympics that are coming. So the FIFA World Cup looks like that's across the US, and then the 2026 Olympics are in the Italian Alps. They're not just competitions anymore. They're launching pads for deeper exploration of host cities and cultures, and we're booking them now. But it's not all about watching from the sidelines. Tour operators are crafting next-level adventures for thrill seekers in heli hiking. Helicopters drop hikers at remote alpine trails too spectacular and inaccessible for regular trekkers, while sea walking takes underwater explorers in helmets to walk with marine life on the ocean floor. It's the ultimate quest for bragging rights or just our growing need to push limits. See, no interest in that, but you might have people that are interested in that. And that is like, again, when we're going about the why, thinking about the why, a lot of people, their why is to have these deeper, more meaningful experiences, these different experiences. A lot of them, I feel like this is a life list checking off, like I'm going to do the most daring things I can in my lifetime. Number 13, time tripping. Time is meaningless, as it turns out, and travelers are taking advantage of an increasingly clock and calendar-free world. So an increase that they're noticing has been 110% increase on open 24 hours or open late. We're kissing the 9 to 5, 2 weeks PTO life goodbye, and we're not looking back. Yes, I concur. Thanks to flexible work, time has new meaning for travelers. We're hitting early morning raves and stopping by the Eiffel Tower for a crowd-free selfie after the bars close. We're heading to Lapland to max out the midnight sun with nighttime swims and solstice celebrations. So this is something, especially like as time does become more flexible, how are those time flexible travelers wanting to spend their time? So a couple of ideas are Bermuda bar crawl, Alaskan aurora adventure, Kyoto at night by bike, kayaking, and a bioluminescent bay, which is something that you can do in Puerto Rico if you didn't know. So this is really interesting because there's a lot of people who are going away from the traditional 9 to 5. I mean, I would say you are also one of those because you have a travel business and we work very non-traditional hours, especially just as entrepreneurs in general. So how can you combine this with the very much increase that searchers are experiencing to do things at non-traditional hours? And then the last one, number 14, slow going. Eco-conscious travelers are choosing to take the long way, all to slow down and enjoy the journey. Something that was interesting is that they've experienced a 143% increase in train experiences. So have you also noticed this within your travel business? Slow travel isn't just an eco-friendly alternative to flying, it's becoming the main event. While companies with employee benefits like climate perks are offering extra days off for responsible travel time, we're also discovering that the scenic route just hits different. We're taking the Glacier Express through the Swiss Alps, we're floor-to-ceiling windows frame snow-capped peaks, or island hopping through the Greek, oh my gosh, I don't know this word, Cyclades? Sorry if I mispronounced that very badly. On Star Clipper's four-masted Star Flyer to really unplug. The journey itself is the new destination. Whether it's winding through Japan on a sleeper train, watching cherry blossoms blur past your window, or hiking Portugal's Rota Vicentina from fishing village to fishing village, we're trading quick connections for a more unhurried, unbothered experience. It's all about the art of getting there. So they mentioned New Zealand by train, the Amalfi Coast by foot, and the Nile River by boat. So I would love to know which ones of these kind of piqued your interest more, is the one that you're looking to dive in deep a little bit more. I did, before we jump off, want to give a shout out to some of the podcast listeners who have sent in some messages. So 1646 in Jasper, Alabama, really enjoyed this podcast about the use of AI. I have been playing with both Claude and ChatGPT to help me with posts and emails. Love to hear that. Then we have 6977 in Redwood City, California. Hey, Rita, thank you so much for this episode. I've started using ChatGPT more in my travel business, but I'm definitely not getting the full capacity of it. I really appreciate the insight into teaching it more and getting the most out of it. And I simply just walked into it just now while walking my dogs after listening to your podcast and got a great resource that I'm going to use. Thank you. Thank you, Lauren. And then last but not least, this is a fun one. 1732 Whiteville, North Carolina. Tell Steph that my brother started Bella's Gelato. He has since sold it. It's such a small world. I live in North Carolina. I let Steph know, and if you're kind of wondering, like, who am I talking about? We had Steph Lee on the podcast from Host Agency Reviews last week, and she mentioned Bella's Gelato, and she was very tickled to hear that somebody knew about Bella's Gelato, and not only knew about it, like, was related to it. So thank you so much for sharing all of your fun stories about what you're learning, and also just personal updates within the texting function of the podcast. So if you're kind of like, how can I get a little shout out on the podcast? Just head over to the show description of the app that you're looking this on, and one of the very first links that you should see at the top says send Rita your thoughts. Click on that. It will send you to your text messaging app. I won't get your phone information or anything. I just get the information that you saw, where you're texting from, and then the last four phone number digits. So privacy is up there. But yeah, send me what you thought about these trends, which trend is the most that you're like looking to dive in on. And then also send me your ideas of the lead generation series, what trends or niches that you would like me to discuss during that series this year that will probably be coming in the next month or so. So we're very close to it. As I like to help you really take action within your business. So that is it for me and the trends. And this week, I'm going to be relaxing a lot this weekend after a hefty week at Host Week. And I hope that you also have an amazing week. Thank you so much for being here, and I'll see you here next week.